It is tax season, but before you ship off your files to the IRS, you may want to stay for this segment. If there's anyone who can make filing taxes enjoyable or at least understandable, it's our next guest, Bill Cobb, the CEO and president of H&R Block. Welcome, Bill. Great to have you here.
Thanks, Tanya.
So, on a serious note, the IRS just released information about tax fraud. Is this a rising problem?
It started about 4 years ago, and it is a rising problem that really got exponentially worse last year. It's organized crime, it's organized countries stealing individuals' identities, which from the dark net, people's social security numbers, et cetera, and filing false tax returns both with the federal level and with the states.
Wow.
Because the tradition has been the only identifier you had was the social security number. And that, unfortunately, is very readily available. So that has proliferated the fraud with tax returns.
So is there anything that taxpayers can do to protect themselves?
Yeah, there are a number of tips that they can do. First of all, as an industry, we are working closely with the IRS, all the tax preparation companies. We're now sharing information on attacks we get from the outside. We're putting suspicious returns on the side from our own fraud filters and letting the IRS or the state deal with that. And then we have also this year for filing added additional what are called data elements, which is more information about where you can identify, like an IP address, where is this coming from. What consumers or clients can do is you can always file early before the fraudster comes. Do not use public sharing websites. Do not go to Starbucks and do your taxes on your tablet or whatever and go from
on an open Wi-Fi. Don't
you have exactly. You have to use secure, a secure server,
Sure.
At work or at home. You have to make sure you're up to date on your software so that you keep your software secure, so there's virus protection, there's always malware coming in. Because these fraudsters, and we've seen this year, we don't have data from the IRS for this year. We know last year was a huge problem, but they're trying to get more aggressive.
Because there's more awareness around this issue, if you do find yourself embroiled in tax fraud or some of your information has been stolen, is it a little bit easier to get it cleared up, or is it still a big mess?
It's still a big mess. One of the things we do now is we offer a product called the Tax Identity Shield, which gives people an IP PIN. It gives them a pre-season scan to know how dangerous, or how vulnerable they might be. It ultimately could do a restoration service because, frankly, the IRS hasn't had to deal with this problem where they realize that taxpayers are victims here, that this is a crime that's perpetrated, but their traditional systems, basically your return, you go and file your return and it says you've already filed. Then you're put into an 8 to 9 month holding pattern. I know they're working to try to improve that because they realize it's not the taxpayer at fault, but it's still a mess. And that's why we encourage you to go to a competent tax preparer like ourselves, maybe buy our product Tax Identity Shield, which is designed to prevent tax identity theft.
Do you have any other new products this year?
We're launching a new service we call Block Advisors. We have about 300 of those offices that we've opened up this year. We've launched it on the New York Stock Exchange today. They're open right now. It's for a more complex client, someone who needs year-round services, wants private offices, wants to use tax planning, may have a small business. So it's a more complex client. And I might say that doesn't mean necessarily wealthy. You can have people who, let's say, would be described as middle class, but may have a complicated situation where they own a home, have children, perhaps have education credits, child care credits. All of these refundable credits can get pretty complicated, and this is certainly a service.
Absolutely. I mean, and speaking of complicated tax codes, this is election season, and every candidate has a tax plan that they're talking about. Do you agree that the tax code needs to be simplified, or do you think that there is a candidate who has a good grasp on the tax situation?
I think candidates, frankly, are afraid to address the situation. I do think we are in favor of simplification. There are 5 different definitions of a child in the tax code, as an example. We have to train all our people because our brand, which has been around for 61 years, has to rely on an accurate tax return. The tax code is 74,000 pages long. To just say it can be done on a postcard, I think is unrealistic. But I think there are ways that with relentless focus and a serious discussion, that the tax code can become simpler. And I actually think that is good for tax preparation companies, and it's good for taxpayers.
Absolutely. And then what would you say is the single biggest mistake most people tend to make when filing their taxes?
They don't realize all the refundable credits that they're eligible for. They don't take deductions that they're entitled to. That's why you need a competent tax preparer. Obviously, we'd love for you to come to H&R Block, but make sure whoever you go to has certification. The other piece is, frankly, and we offer this service, to do it yourself. Doing it yourself, usually, I don't care how smart you think you are, about half of people, and we have the research to back this up, make mistakes when they do it themselves. Half of the half leave money on the table, half of the half may get a notice from the IRS.
You certainly don't want either one of those things to happen.
No, exactly.
So Bill Cobb, CEO of H&R Block, thank you so much for that.
Thanks, Tanya.